We're live and hello. Hey, welcome to Entrepreneur Pitstop. I'm your host, Dean Denardi, and Entrepreneur Pitstop is the place we pull over, stop in, refuel, check our tires, and see how our engine is running, see how we're doing in our entrepreneur journey, on our business development structures, strategies, techniques, and whatever else it takes to get our goals achieved. So sometimes you have to take that 5 minutes, pull over, see how things are doing, do a systems check, not only on your operations, but also on yourself. Where are you mentally, emotionally, physically? And how is it impacting your company, your team? And this is where we do this. We talk to professionals and we get tips, tricks, and strategies to help us succeed and achieve our goals and learn what's new and what's going on out there. And welcome to Entrepreneur Pitstop. And today, my guest is Niina Kaarilahti-Vahtera, and she is from Pitstop. I know I probably botched that, so you can correct me. So welcome, welcome, Niina.
Thank you so much for inviting me to discuss with you. This is fun.
So please correct me on the name.
It was perfect. It was just perfect.
So what is the name of the company again?
Pitstop.
Pitstop. Okay, so basically people.
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about not necessarily HR specifically, but HR because they're the hiring mechanism for companies. We're going to basically talk about hiring and some strategies, obstacles, suggestions on however it does because you're an HR specialist. And I think this is a great element. I have a couple little nuggets I'm going to throw at you today, but I think startups, SMEs, companies, especially looking to globalize, they really need to consider certain things when it comes to hiring because it's not always, the focus is on the person, but I believe that the focus often has to be more on the team and the company, and you sort of work this problem backwards. That's my 2 cents. I'm not a specialist in it, but that's been my experience. But without any further delay, I'd love to hear what you have to say on the subject. And I understand that you have a little bit of a system for us, a little layout, a step-by-step process, if you would, in how to do this. So, I mean, like, what's your thought in general on it?
I think hiring is one of the most important decisions an entrepreneur can make. And making the decision to hire is the first one. And then when that decision is done, whom to hire, kind of what are the competencies, what is my context, what's the right fit for my company. So it's a kind of very crucial things because you're kind of investing a lot of money in hiring, and then also kind of you have expectations of the output and kind of what this person will achieve. And it's a big thing for business, especially kind of the smaller the company, the bigger it is, but it is kind of a big thing for any size company.
Right. Especially here in Finland, because from what I understand too, hiring people is a big deal financially. And it's like a commitment because you have a lot of insurances and it's dare I say, it's almost cost prohibitive to hire people in Finland,
Yeah.
and then it's like you get that 6 months leeway time. And then after that 6 months, you're sort of locked into this, commitment, and it's hard. Well, it's easier today than it was years ago, maybe even 5 years plus, not even so long ago, but it's difficult to let people go, or it's harder to fire them. It's hard, even so if they're no good and you thought you did a good job at picking out the right person, but it turns out maybe after they get past that 6-month mark, their own personality shifts and changes because they had their own agenda, which is always possible. And, because now they feel they're locked in. And the companies are stuck with people, to a certain degree. Now I understand it's loosened up a little bit nowadays with the hiring and firing.
Yeah.
But, because that's a whole side conversation. Like that goes along with my whole principle on Finland and business development, where their infrastructure is not, their policies are not designed for business growth, and which is unfortunate. But anyway, yes, the people are how to choose the people. So my question to you is, how do you choose the right person? There's an emphasis on education over experience. Do you find that in the hiring processes? Is that important? Is it not important? Is there about finding balance? What do you think?
Well, going back to the kind of research and kind of what it has is there available kind of on what is the right match, kind of how to find the right person. So it's not it's not a simple thing. I think it's always about the context, it's about the competencies, and it's a lot about the motivation of a person. So it's simply not that's why we have this so-called probation period, that both sides, parties can kind of test, like, is this now what was kind of told to me as an employee, and as an employer, is this person the right fit? What I've learned during the recruitment process, are these the via references, they have a match?
Right.
Making assumptions based on a couple of interviews and even the references is difficult, because we usually we look at there's a theory that the past performance is the best kind of what is it? How do you say? Is the best describer of the future performance as well. This is kind of a theoretical background, and it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense, and I think there's a kind of some truth, but it doesn't, like, you can't always go behind that, because there are people entering the job market, people are making changes, there are kind of motivational changes happening in the history of a person.
Right. So I'm so glad. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because it is, and so many people make changes, and some people don't have the history for the job they're applying for, but they have the skills or the aptitude to do it.
Exactly.
And that's when it comes down to deciding on the person. But if you don't get past if you don't get to that first interview and they're only looking at paperwork, then it's hard to get to the person or the aptitude.
Yep. Yeah. And this is kind of the difficult part, because we can see that people have past experience on that they have done something, but it doesn't mean that they have enjoyed it or they're the best fit, or the context. I think what we are kind of undermining often is the context. So if you're hiring a person, you always have to consider kind of in what type of context this person is kind of blooming. And what is the team that you're hiring into, and what is the dynamics of the team? Is this the person who is supposed to be working like an entrepreneur with you, or is kind of what are the requirements? And this brings back to that when we shouldn't start from the point of finding the right person. We should start from the plan. So it's kind of a plan. What do you exactly need is the first step. So this person should be contributing to, what are the goals, and kind of how to get into these goals, kind of what are the competencies, what are the tasks, and so on. Kind of all of this you have to think. And in this context, and if you think of the next 6 months, it might be too short. You have to think for a longer time, because in Finland, as you said, kind of the commitment is much longer than just a short time. The employment as a starting point has to be made on a kind of I'm losing these English words, but for an indefinite period, basically. So, and this is kind of something to consider. There are some changes planned into this, but they are not yet in effect.
What do you mean?
In the fixed term area.
Okay, so in the system, so in the
employment law, in the work
policies, right?
Yes. So there's a planned change that would be put in effect, but it's still in process. So the plan
change to make it better for a little bit more balanced.
Yeah, to be easier because now if you're hiring somebody on a fixed term, you have to have a reason that is kind of relevant to the law. So it has to be a substitution or kind of not project work as such, but a short-term assignment, or kind of there are other reasons as well. So if you don't have a reason, you should hire the person for an indefinite period. Yeah. So, but there are a lot of kind of, it's not going back to the you have to do the planning. So it's not finding the candidate, selecting the person, and finding the right fit to your team is hard. But I think kind of where we often may find ourselves not putting effort in is the planning phase. So what am I looking for? Kind of what I want this person to achieve, and then kind of doing the budgeting and planning for that. So you have to make calculations. So you shouldn't be kind of jumping that, hey, I need this person. You have to make your kind of the financials clear that you can carry the cost, because whenever you're hiring a person, when we look into the employment law, and for example, we're doing a hire on indefinite period, so until further notice. So it means that kind of this person that you're hiring, it might not be the right fit, for example, or the person during the years to come, this person may have personal situations. People fall ill. There might be longer illnesses. There might be other types of long leave of absences where you have to find replacement, for example, or you have to be covering the cost for some time during the absence.
Right.
Yes. And also kind of if you find at some point that you are not needing this person anymore, so still you are kind of have to pay for the notice period salary and all of that. So it is a huge investment to do. And that's why kind of you have to do your calculations well, your plan, what you need, and you are able to cover, and you have some air in your budget to cover the cost for exceptional situations as well. And I'm still kind of bringing in, when you're looking at the employment law as such, it has kind of elements. But if your business is in a field, in a domain that has collective agreements, so usually the collective agreement is actually, it has improved terms for the employee. And this means that you might be you have to pay for longer than for example, during sick leaves, illnesses, than with the normal, if you're just going by the employment law. So this is kind of an area why you should never, ever, ever skip and do your homework.
Right. I agree. The planning is important. There's a few things I want to say here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. It sounds like the law is still favoring the employee, not the business.
Yes.
And this is where I say Finland's business development structure is not designed for business development because it does not favor commercialism. It does not favor the business growing and giving them the power to do what's best for them to develop, to grow, and expand. There seems like there's always this chokehold on the business, but help the people. Now, that's just my perspective and what I've experienced. And just a little bit of what I'm hearing you say, the company has to make sure they have the funds. It's about the money. Make sure you can be for the long haul financially, and then find the right person. The way I actually look at it is like, if you hire the right person, the money's not the problem, because then the right team that you build by hiring the right people will get you the results you need financially, and it's not a question. But because the law supporting the employee, even in times of distress, it doesn't favor that growth. So in the hiring process, it seems like it's very challenging to find that balance between what the law says, where your wiggle room is, or what you're capable, or what you have to secure or not secure, versus finding the right person with the right qualifications. Because who's to say that the person doesn't change, or the qualifications don't produce the right aptitude for the person to be able to do? You never know until you put it into effect. Mm-hmm. And sometimes 6 months is not long enough, but so I just find it interesting how the emphasis seems to push, at least from what I'm hearing, is on make sure you're financially secure. Now, this is just my opinion, but some of this input is just my opinion. But you're saying, though, there should be definitely a plan. I agree. And it has to be a diverse plan so that you know what you're getting into. And there's a process, and I'd like to hear your process. But the first step in this process is to make sure you're financially prepared
Mm-hmm. I think it's about
for hiring somebody,
exactly.
hoping you're hiring the right person, but basically that you know what you're getting into.
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
financially okay with it, and you're not just taking wild chances, because it's the wild chances that are going to get you in trouble if you gamble too high a stakes.
Exactly. I think it's about it's always no matter what the size of the company, it's about in HR we have a term workforce planning. So you plan what you need, what is the resourcing plan for the coming times. And as part of that, you understand your cost structure and how much risk you're able to carry. But it's not only that, it's part of the plan. Financials as an entrepreneur, you can't undermine that. You have to be on top of things. It's you have to know your cash flow. You have to know where, because it's really, really important for the the steady plan ahead.
No doubt, and I believe that's one of the biggest problems with startups. They have no clue how to budget
exactly.
or use finances, and they're just like, woohoo, money.
Yeah, exactly.
And they spend it on the craziest things that are like, why are you spending your money there? You don't need to do that.
Exactly.
This is why we have this term bootstrap. That means, going in with the bare minimum, and you're putting money to necessities. And I think they're disillusioned by what necessities are, because they get this big audience out there that tells them what they need to do and how they need to do it in this startup incubation, and from people who've never owned businesses before. It's just a collective of people who have studied how to design businesses, how to make business. But when you're in the field and you're doing it, it's a whole different ball game. And yes, so yes, I think that financial intelligence is it's so important.
Yeah.
Forget about HR, forget about anything, just in general.
Exactly.
Financial intelligence is going to win at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is the first starting point.
Okay.
But then, of course, you have to consider what you need, what kind of results you're expecting, what's your strategy, what do you want this person to do. So really plan, and not only for the first
6 months.
2 months or 6 months or so on, but for a longer term.
Right.
And then when you have done this, so you may actually come into a decision that, hey, maybe this hiring path is not the path for this specific need that I have. There are other ways of you can do you can resource by other means also. You can have have partnerships, doing sales for you, doing this task for you. You can do this contracting type of thing where you have a better grasp of your cost, for example. So you know exactly what is, and the employment risk is carried by someone else.
Right. So like freelance or contract work. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was talking about these indefinite contracts or until further notice. But if your need is more flexible, so there are ways to do contracts with people that are flexible of both ways. So you have a pool of people, your need is every now and then, so you can call from the pool of people and they can either join or then they decide not to. But you have to know your options there as well. So it's not only one way forward. There are multiple ways to find the people to do what you need. So simple hiring is not the only case. Yes.
Okay. So financial integrity. Right. And what was the next step?
Hiring strategy, let's say. Like your needs. What do you need? Yeah.
Right. The plan, the needs.
Yeah.
Right. So the hiring strategy. Well, not a strategy. It's hiring like
a resourcing strategy.
Or the whole thing is a strategy. But I'm like, if you wanted to call it a step by step, it's just like you're hiring your needs. Like, what is it that you want them to do? What do you need to have done? What are their qualifications to be able to get that job done? And how do you see it in 5 years, not just 6 months or a year from now?
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take me further. What's the next step? What do we
Yeah.
do here?
So when you have done
I'm
kind of-
hiring some. I did my homework. I have the money. I know the type of person I want. Now, do I adopt? Let me
and
ask
you
you
have
though.
made the decision that you want to hire instead
Yeah,
of
I'm going to
kind
hire.
of not partnering or contracting.
No, I'm going to hire
something.
somebody. I'm going to
Yeah,
bring
you're
on
hiring someone.
I'm hiring somebody. I'm going to bring on a full-time
Yeah.
employee. Now, do I think, now going back to my principle, do I consider their education? Do I consider their job history? Do I consider, all the stuff that you read on paper on a resume? Because now you're not in the face-to-face. So you're not getting to know the person. You're only reading something, right? So in this first filtration stage, because a lot of companies use AI to filter out their paper applications. So they're still not looking at the person.
Yeah. When you're using AI, you're letting the model do the work for you.
Right. And
if you don't know exactly.
Right. The model may not be fine-tuned to identify these certain markers in a person through their writing or through how they word things or through whatever, the characteristics. So, what do I look for? What do I look for in a person to make sure they're right for the team, to help add to the team so that the team can help do what I want it to do for my company's growth?
Yep. Well, when you have done your homework, you know what the person is supposed to achieve within kind of the first months and kind of in a longer term. So you think of what are the qualifications? What the person has been doing before, for example, what has been is the education for the person to be able to do that. And that's a difficult job because it's kind of like it's not written in the stars that somebody who has a kind of whatever degree is able to do something. So that's why you go back into kind of what the person has been doing before, for example.
Right.
And the past performance, the past achievements, and so on. So these are the things. But it said it's about the motivation as well, and kind of that's why we interview people. That's why we do assessments so that we see what the people are motivated by, and also kind of the context, as said before. It's like, is this a context where the person is kind of happy to work in? So it might be that person is very, for example, safety kind of requiring, so doesn't want to carry risk or something. So it might be difficult to work in a startup environment where everything is kind of, yeah, exactly. So these things that you have to consider. I think it's impossible to give any specific rules for that, but do your homework.
Right.
Check, think of what are the precursors for certain achievements and how you test them. And then look for the person that is different from you, is not a copy of you, is kind of able to succeed and is kind of interested in joining the team. It is kind of sees what you see and is excited about that. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. And like, I guess because like from like my experience is that if I have two people on the table and one person looks really good on paper, they have all these qualifications and they have, the right history or the right interests or whatever, and the next person they're almost there, but there's a couple things that might be missing. It might not be. But the person who doesn't look 100% on paper is more willing and teachable than the person who's not. This is where I think the challenge comes in, and this is where companies need to take hiring to another level and don't just rely on what the paper says in the black and white to dictate who you hire. You need to consider in some of your, second and third round interviews, the person. Maybe they got a background in, maybe they like to socialize. So some of the stuff implies that they have social skills. And you need to read into that, because those social skills could be more important than somebody who can pick up a phone and call 30,000 people. That person may only need to call 5,000 people because they're more sociable and they can land more clients before the other person who has a track record of, phone sales for 15, 20, 30 years.
Yep.
Or a person that's more teachable versus a person who's been doing something and is just so set in their ways, or so structured, or they, have the credentials. So that's a person who stands by their credentials and they're like, well, I know how to do this because this is done this way and this is what I learned. And they're just not, they're not flexible or not teachable, and I think that during this stage, employers need to be considerate.
Yeah,
Or
very wise.
Or just simply aware that this phenomenon happens, and it can be the make or break deal of a good hire or bad hire.
Yeah, exactly. And in hiring context, we always talk about bias, and kind of we are looking through the world via our lenses, kind of our personal lenses, and that makes it kind of very important to understand kind of your own biases and kind of handicaps there, so that you're not kind of tripping into these simplicities
Right.
that prohibit you to make good decisions. And the same thing is with AI. So if we are using kind of a poor model for our context, and it has kind of poor training data, so the same applies with people. And I think when we're talking about people making hiring decisions, or kind of AI doing hiring decisions, I don't know which one is better or which one is worse, as long as we are aware of the bias and kind of what is embedded. So
I
transparency in there is important.
Sure, I think that's half the battle. I think if you're aware and you're still going to make mistakes, it's irrelevant. It's impossible not to. But you have to just simply take those things into consideration, and you have to self-examine, and you have to know where you're at with the hiring process and your relationship to people and your business growth and so forth. I always say, I don't care, hands down, first thing, business is not about making money. It's not about growing companies. It's about people. First person it's about is the founder. It's about the CEO. It's about the founder. It's the people who start the company. That mindset, that personality, that's the seed that inherently will develop and grow the business. And you need to know where that seed comes from. You need to know, you have to be aware of the way you think, your bad qualities, good qualities. You have to self-examine, and that's so important. You're right. So when you are hiring, you have to be considerate and take these things into consideration when looking to hire quality people, or people worth taking a chance on. Because now, hey, look at Finland's, we're still the highest country in the EU for unemployment. That's insane. And it's only, I will leave my opinion. I stopped.
Are you stepping into?
I stopped myself. Because I can go down a really dark hole with that one.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, I believe face value, Finland has no reason, they should not be in this situation. There's no reason for it. Absolutely not. But I think hiring needs to be more flexible in some of these considerations with people, especially because, listen, I'm an immigrant. I come from someplace else. I'm an expat, whatever you want to call me. I'm not Finnish. I'm not a homegrown Finn, and I never will be. And that's not good or bad. But the thing is, companies stick to certain regimens when they hire people, whether it's certain educational levels. Finland has a high aptitude for education, which is great. But when companies only hire people at certain levels of education, that's bad, because I come across a lot of people, Americans, Brits, Spaniards, people from the Middle East, all over, that are living here in Finland and are highly, not only educated, but they're highly experienced in a professional trade, and at times better than a Finn, and they can't get hired. And I think they're suited for the job maybe better than the Finnish person is.
Yeah.
And it's got to be.
That's a very difficult area.
It is. It's a really difficult area, and for a lot of people, it's personal.
It is,
and it if you want to help your business, you got to help yourself, and you got to get out of your own way.
Mm.
And I don't care if it's hiring people. I don't care if it's the way you operate and run things, if you micromanage and you shouldn't be micromanaging, or if whatever it is, or if you spend too much money and you need to, maybe you should stop, whatever it is, get out of your own way. And like you said, I think hiring has to take into consideration some of these other attributes in the hiring process, to look at people also. It's not just one or the other. It's all of these qualities, all these attributes that make up, a quality hire. And then I don't care. And then I don't care who the person is. Then they're right for the job. Then God bless them, and off you go.
I want to say a point to the fact that it's not only about hiring and kind of the difficulties of hiring international talent, for example. It's not only about entrepreneurs. I think we have a problem in the Finnish society, which is kind of the businesses and the demand and kind of the business environment. And I think kind of we were in a situation, let's say, this is 3-4 years ago, before COVID, we're in a situation where we were looking kind of everywhere no matter where, we were looking for the resources for people, right people to join companies. For example, in IT, it was a difficult phase, and the market was empty, kind of completely empty. And now, kind of just a few years later, we are in a situation where kind of we have competent, excellent people all over the place, but the market is so difficult. The business and the economy is kind of dry. It's a Sahara, so there's nothing. And this is the part, kind of, we have great talent, we have great people, no matter kind of with the background we're coming from, as long as the businesses would have customers who demand for the services, we need people to do things. And this is kind of the part. It's not only the employment law that is kind of rigid and difficult, it's also the economic environment that would have to be much more flexible and to be smooth. There's not one thing that let's fix the employment law and it fixes everything. It's not. It's the big picture, and it's the business, the macro economy that has to be favorable for businesses to work and to kind of for companies to invest in Finland.
Right. And unfortunately, Finland's business development infrastructure is not designed for that. And there's so many elements that need to change, and like that's why that's one of the reasons I do this podcast also, is to help push entrepreneurship, because as difficult as the Finnish policies are for business growth, I think entrepreneurship has a way of being a little bit more flexible, and you can seek outside, to help yourself develop and grow. You can get out of Finland faster or more easily with that mindset behind you. Even if you come back to Finland, it doesn't matter, but just to develop something, and, if people are not on unemployment, or, taking the lower or easier roads, or instead of using unemployment services that we have here, which are great in Finland, don't use them as the safety net. Don't use them to carry you. Look at it as, well, if ever this happens, I know that's there, and still take the chance, go out and do it. I think that if a lot more people were invested in, dare I say, real entrepreneurship, not this whole fake startup, let's start a business tomorrow and get funding from everybody and their grandmother. And, oh, well, if it doesn't work, we try it again, or we just go work at, co-market. I'm talking about real, taking the chance, believing in something, developing it, and taking it as far as possible, no matter what the challenges are. In that sense of entrepreneurship, we wouldn't have such high, it might help buffer some of the unemployment that we face, but at the same time, when you're building these businesses or you're in entrepreneurship, you have to understand hiring. You have to know, this thing about the people you bring into your team is so important. So I think what you have to say is so highly valuable, and it's such a needed perspective, because I come across too many people that hire their best friends, their brothers, their sister-in-law, or they have their, their secretary that's worked with them for 15 years or 10 years, and their son needs a job, and now, oh well, they open up business. Come on, that's not really helping.
But hey, this is kind of what.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but one of the things that I wanted to kind of, if we still have time to discuss, is kind of what are the channels for kind of recruiting or hiring people.
Let's hear it.
And I think the first thing that I wrote on my notes is that networks.
Okay. Yes.
So yeah, and that's why I think if we take the question of international talent in Finland, I think it's crucial to build the networks, not only to remain in your own bubbles with the own. But
definitely,
really kind of, I know it's not easy.
It's not easy. Very that's the other
difficult
thing. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, the whole network thing, because networking in Finland is very difficult.
I know.
And I mean, it's a double-edged sword because it's so highly important.
Yeah. Exactly. But networks is kind of this, if you think of the where to hire from. So kind of the people because you have
right, because it's got trust.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the important elements that is there. But there are kind of other, the making job announcements in different channels. That's a kind of a traditional way. But there you're only attracting candidates that are actively looking for new employment. So that's why kind of many companies decide to go on and do candidate search with a partner. So, which is of course expensive, but then
what does that mean?
So
you mean like with a recruiter? Okay,
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So that's when you kind of, if you have very specific demands on something, so it might be worthwhile. But then you have to have the budget. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to make the financial planning. And right. I think kind of what is maybe not often known by entrepreneurs is that we have kind of this governmental subvention systems for kind of that certain candidates who have been, for example, who are more hardly hireable. So they might have kind of the subventions, kind of the salary subvention that can be. And there are excellent candidates out there, especially in this situation. I'm not fully aware what is available at this exact moment as this, but there always is kind of a mechanism has been. So it's called palkkatuki. And
I'm sorry, because I've never heard of that. So if you could clarify, clarify that a little bit for me, what that actually is, because I'm a little uncertain by what you mean.
So government has kind of this possibility to pay part of the salary for some people.
Right, for a certain period of time. Right.
Yes, exactly. So that reduces the threshold of hiring. You have kind of a...
Right, but takes the pressure off the business.
Exactly. Part of it, And you have the probation period and all of that there. And you can find excellent candidates via this stream.
There is a program I just read about recently that the Finnish government is paying companies to hire I don't know if it was anybody or if it was specifically geared toward immigrants,
Yes,
but they
there's
were
a Turku.
hiring them. It was something new that just came out. And it's like, if you hire them for 3 months, you get like 3,000. If you hire them for 6 months, you get the 6 months, but it's only for up to the 6-month period. It was just to help the buffer trial period time.
Exactly, onboarding and
Right. So, and I think that was good. But then in my head, I'm thinking to myself, this is really bad because now the government's trying to get Finnish companies to hire immigrants. They have to bribe them. I mean, this is the way people, but this isn't my perspective. This is the way other people are seeing this.
Okay.
So this isn't just my opinion. I've had conversations about this.
Yeah, I think the Finnish way is kind of lowering the threshold. So kind of making,
I agree with that. And I think that objective is a helping one. But from a expat or from a non-Finns perspective, because and I've talked to other non-Finns, because this program that just came out is specifically for immigrants or non-Finns.
Yes, yeah.
So to ask a Finn doesn't matter. You know what I mean? To ask your opinion matters, but not their outside perspective on it. So that's why because we have had such a difficult time getting into Finnish companies. So the way we see it is they won't hire us. Government's got to bribe them to hire us.
But the kind of the same mechanism is available for kind of young people.
Okay. Right. I've seen that with
young
my
people,
kids.
And then kind of for employees or people who have been kind of who have graduated recently or who have been outside of the job market for some reason.
Right. There's certain programs for specific types of people.
Yeah.
Right.
But I have kind of
looking at this one, you know, it's like.
Yeah, you always have these angles, kind of, or viewpoints. But I think it's an excellent, and being in a position where I have been hiring people. So I think these are kind of excellent ways, because when business leaders do their math well, and they say that, okay, we have a need here, we see the potential, but kind of cannot make the investment right now. So then you can lower the threshold by bringing in that, hey, we have this, I found this candidate who have this, and we only have to pay this much for the first 6 months or so. Or there are these programs where you pay like some thousands of euros and you get completely free because the person is with the employment market support mechanism. And there's no hiring forced to hire, so you can check, and if you have a position opening and you get person to do the task that you need for a specific. So it's kind of it's lowering the threshold, and I guess this is the European or Nordics way of thinking, that you have these mechanisms in place, and it's not about kind of, I think bribery in Finland is a kind of a it's kind of
I know.
Yeah.
Finns don't bribe people, but that's just kind of, you know, lightheartedly, jokingly, like that's the way we kind of see it. It's like, well, now because the Finnish companies won't hire us, you know, the government had to step in and bribe them to hire us. You know, but listen, I don't care what you want to call it. At the end of the day, if it helps change the mindset of business owners here and it helps change their way they behave, it's changing it for a good it's changing it in a positive direction. So I'm all for it. I don't care what you want to call it. I think it's a good step, because even that little step tells me that the internal policies that make business development here so challenging are willing to look for ways to change, even in the subtlest ways. It may take still another 10, 20, 30, 50 years, but it's a step forward from the way it's been. Even if I think it's still so far behind and they got a lot of catching up to do, at least they're kind of getting into the race, let's say. And that's a good thing. So I'm all for it. That's fine. I'm not criticizing it, but just the perspective on it is a little bit.
Yeah, but it's good. It's so interesting, kind of these different perspectives. And when you're a policymaker, I think it's kind of an internal policymaker. It's really difficult to see how people perceive these.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
Regarding the job posting as a company and looking for the right people. There seems to be a lot of confusion when you're reading job applications online, LinkedIn and whatever else, Indeed and all these other platforms that Finnish companies are posting their jobs. Finnish company will post a job in English and say that Finnish is the mandatory language. Okay, not confusing. I mean, why do that? Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of Finnish company job postings written in Finnish, and then they say somewhere in there Finnish and English, or if you have other languages, that's fine, because you're telling me that Finnish is the primary language, right? Because if I can't read this, I shouldn't be applying for it. Don't Google Translate it. Yeah. Because then you're getting the wrong idea. But what I'm talking about are job postings for companies written in English that then say in the little fine print at the bottom of the qualifications, Finnish language mandatory and English.
Yeah.
Shouldn't that be the heading? Because then if I can read this, it doesn't mean I know Finnish. But if you put it in Finnish and I don't know enough Finnish, and I read it, it's a little confusing.
I think it's about company policy and the company structure. If you were working in a global kind of business environment, so it might be that it's all kind of the practice is to publish everything in English because the systems are in English. Might be to promote the activity that kind of the company is international, and then it becomes out quite weird.
It is a little odd. It is a little because now I've run into companies that are international, Finnish international, or they're a small international company, and they want to hire you if you speak English because they want you to help with internationalism, but you have to be fluent in Finnish because they still operate in Finnish in the office. That to me confuses me, because if you're international, you're international.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You can't have 1 foot on one side of the border and 1 foot on the other side of the border. You have to choose, where you have to choose where your home is.
But it's difficult.
Right. So this is the thing.
Yeah.
I'm asking HR. I'm asking, why do companies? So it's help the little person, who's looking for a job. Help the little person who's either hiring. Right? How do I post as a hiring person, entrepreneur, SME, whatever size, I'm a growth company. I want to post for a position. I want to hire somebody.
Think about your
target group. How do I do this? Because now, I don't want to confuse people. I also want to get the right person. I want to save my time. I don't want to waste my time and having to filter all these wrong applicants. Right? So how does a company post it so that there's less confusion? And also then obviously there'll be less confusion for the applicant who's filtering through all of these who do I apply for? Who do I apply for?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of, as a hiring manager, as a hiring entrepreneur, you have to consider what is your target group. And if you are requiring the Finnish language, so then I think it makes sense to post it in Finnish. But if it's not kind of full fluency, it's something else. So then kind of English makes sense in this market.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah. So, but consider your kind of target group is the first thing. And I admit that especially in the past years, there have been some kind of a confusion in the market. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also, too, there's a lot of companies who want to be international, and they're really not. So they're trying to via this way, and that's just like a cheap way of trying to do it.
And I think many companies kind of, at least where I have experience from, they are global companies. They are kind of, they have it's a subsidiary, for example, in Turku area, and it has a long history.
Right.
So it's kind
Right,
of
but they're
the
companies from
locally,
out coming
exactly.
in. Okay, but not the other way around.
Or
Yeah.
they can be other way
Yeah,
around
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
There usually is a reason. Kind of the internal language may be kind of English completely, or then there might be companies who are kind of functioning in local language in Finnish completely. Yet there are kind of a lot of external parties that you are working within internationally, and you are kind of in a global context. But the nearby environment is solely Finnish, and the people do not feel comfortable exchanging, for example, in the meetings into English language. And it is difficult. It's a cultural thing. It's not a company,
Yeah.
I mean, company cultural thing. And it is a big change to kind of do that. And it requires leadership, ambitions,
Right.
and kind of wishes to do the transformation on that side. Yeah. But we are kind of, we are moving on from one topic to another.
No, but it's also about HI and having the competency and having your own, knowledge base for how you hire and what your policies are in-house, whether you're an international company or not, or local, and what your direction is. I think it's still very much on track. So as we start to wind this conversation down, as much as I would love to keep chatting with you, if there's something else you want to add, I'd like to add it. But before we close, after you add whatever you want to add, if there's one thing you could offer and suggest from your experience, without getting into another 3-hour topic here, but it could be open-ended, what would you offer as advice for people to help with either an obstacle, a challenge, or implement a strategy, something that they could food for thought, or real meal for action, if you want to say?
Yeah, I do your homework. It's kind of, you shouldn't step into a process without doing your homework. Know what you need, kind of know that you can afford it, know how you finance it, not to put yourself into trouble, and then kind of do the selection process or the hiring process with care, so that you know that this is kind of the person that you are willing to make the path together and see if it works. Then it brings to my last point, is that it doesn't stop with the hire.
Right.
It starts with the hire. So yeah. So you have to lead, you have to onboard, you have to set expectations, you have to be human to human, and kind of have the conversations, know your person, support, kind of to be able for that person to reach the expectations. So it's so hard, because it's about communications, interaction, leadership, kind of being human to human.
Right.
But that's the key, because then you have trust, and then when you have trust and transparency, you can do wonders together, and you can also depart when it's the time.
Right. Excellent. Wow, Niina, that was not only excellent advice, and I love the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It was good comeback there, and I want to thank you for joining the show. So if anybody out there needs some help, pay up below, and I will have the website information in the podcast posts, and you can reach out to Niina, get some advice, and thank you very much again. Great day.
Thank you, Dean. So good to have a discussion with you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Yep. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Wow, what a great conversation with Niina. Thank you very much for joining us here on Entrepreneur Pit Stop, a place where we take time, pull in, check our tires, air pressure, engine, oil, check in with ourselves, the driver. Are we fatigued? Are we, energized? How are we feeling? How's our machine operating? We need to do that for ourselves, for our business. These are things that are so important, and you really need to take 5. So here at Entrepreneur Pit Stop, that's what we do. We pull over, we take 5, and we get some tips, tricks, and strategies for business development. We hear real live stories and professionals from all kinds of places and backgrounds. So join us again on Entrepreneur Pit Stop for another episode. Take care.